Don't forget, we'll also be looking through today's newspapers, analyzing the biggest stories of the day. Welcome to The Breakfast and Plus TV Africa. Happy holiday and happy Good Friday right here. And I hope you're having a great time. So it means that you're probably just at home and enjoying yourself. And that's okay, but some of us never get the privilege. It's more like a luxury. But it's fine. As always, we start our conversation what's making the rounds in different quarters, what are Nigerians talking about, whether in different states. And this morning, we'll start off with what happened in Delta State. My name is Mercy Abopo. Very unfortunate incident, which is very common and very popular in Nigeria, is the fact that pedophiles would always be with us. They're always with us. It's not just Nigeria, but it cuts across the entire world. So you always have pedophiles. A man has bagged 15 years imprisonment for defiling his neighbor's 10-year-old daughter in Delta State. And that's what a lot of people have been talking about in different social media spaces and even offline. Now, a high court sitting in Ifuron, Delta State, has sentenced Gus Power, who is 38-year-old, to 15 years imprisonment for defiling his neighbor's daughter, who's 10 years old, like I mentioned. The court was presided by Justice Michael Nduka Obi, who handed him the sentence after finding him guilty of the charges that was leveled against him. However, the defendant was arraigned before the court on the charge of having unlawful carnal knowledge of a child. A child is a child according to the Constitution until he or she turns 18. But that also does not take out the fact that when you don't have consent, before any sexual intercourse, that is also, a crime. This also unlawful carnal knowledge happened on the 30th of March. That was in 2020. This is an offense that is actually punishable under Section 218 of the Criminal Code Law in Delta State, that of 2006. However, the Chief State Counsel in the Ministry of Justice in Delta State called 3 witnesses. The witness informed the court that the defendant was a neighbor to the child's parent at the time of the incident and formed the habit of sleeping with her while her parents were not around. Now, God's power, according to eyewitness report and what was presented in court, would give the victim, that's the little child, between 50 and 100 naira after every act, and threatened to kill her and her parents if she ever reported them, or reported the incident. So I'll kill you. You can't tell anybody. If you try to tell your mom, you try to tell your dad, tell anybody, I'm going to kill you, I'm going to kill your daddy and mommy. Do you want that? And I'm probably sure the child will say no. However, the vigilant neighbor who noticed, the act reported that to the victim's parent, who in turn reported to the local vigilante, and a trap was set for him. And he was eventually caught in the act and was handed over to the police for investigation. We can't even put out that, video, even if we had it. It's not something you want to look at, During interrogation at the police station, he made confessional statements saying that, which was, charged before the court, that he pleaded not guilty. According to him, he had also told the court that the girl's parent had issues with him and they were framing him for the offense. So he didn't commit it. He was being framed even after he was caught in the act. How evil can you be then? So the court stated that at the end of the day, this is a summary of it because it's quite lengthy, is that the court, with all of the findings and everything that went on, said that such a person should not be should be kept out of circulation. Sounds like, the note, as to read the streets of pedophiles, and sentence would serve as a deterrent to other pedophiles, which is very apt. So this sentence, 15 years in prison, will serve as a deterrent to other pedophiles that we have in our society, and the fact that he will be off the streets because he's a threat. And still walking freely, this is according to the judgment of the court on the streets of Delta State, would not, do anybody any good. So yes, that's why, the judgment was given, because it was found guilty. But let's even get to the crux of this matter. It's unfortunate that pedophiles are everywhere. When I mean everywhere, they're not just in Nigeria. In Africa, in Nigeria, in other parts of the world, you have pedophiles everywhere. And our children need to be protected from this set of persons or people. Now, in most cases, they're not strangers. You need to understand that pedophiles sometimes are not people that are far from you. They're very close. There could be your neighbor, there could be family, there could also be spiritual leaders, there could be anybody. Yes, in all cases. We don't even want to have this. I think it's a conversation you're not even sure of having. It's not just limited to the girl child. So like I said, these people, this set of people who would like to have sexual intercourse with children are everywhere, and they're not far from us. So we need to pay attention, very close attention, to our children. If we think that they are future of tomorrow, they are the future of tomorrow, they are the leaders of tomorrow, we have to protect them. Now, you cannot imagine the psychological trauma that this 10-year-old would be faced with. You can't even imagine the drama that she probably would be facing for the remaining part of her life. You can't take that away. And as much as we say that it's commendable of the Delta State government for having laws that, it's laws that sexual offenders can be punished, in this particular case, you have a child there. Again, you would also want to agree with me that, the laws are very feeble. The laws against sexual offenders are feeble. In most cases, even if they have been, invoked or domesticated, at the end of the day, what is the level of implementation? Then you also need the police on board, because they're also part of the entire process. But honestly, it breaks my heart. Like I would say, I'm not sure that we're ready for this conversation. But again, we need to pay attention, very close one, to our children. We need to protect them. Just recently, it's just of recent that we have in 2022 that 34 states, so we're having 34 states out of 36 states that have domesticated the Child Rights Act, an offshoot of the United Nations Convention on the Right of, a child. This act simply prohibits child marriage, which seeks better welfare for children and supports compulsory education for every child, among other progressive provision. So, there's a lot of harm that's done to our children on a daily basis in our country, that's Nigeria. So you find out that in some quarters, in some parts, some people hide under the guise of religion. So you have underage marriages where kids are married off, and Africa, Nigeria seems to be the center hosting all of that. It is really saddening. So yes, if we have, as of 2022, that's the report. The government has said 34 out of 36 states. So then you still have 32 states. But prior to this time, in 2019, it was just about 12 states that were still yet to say a yes to it. And even if you have the states who have said we have domesticated this, we have said, this law has been, activated. That will be the word. What's the level of implementation? So it's another thing to say, hey, the laws have been, activated. What's the level of implementation at the end of the day? It is very unfortunate. It's very saddening. I'm not sure you want to even begin to picture that. Imagine your 10-year-old or 15-year-old being taken advantage of. The people who ought to protect these children are the ones taking advantage of them. And how far can we fare? Recently, Kenya did something very fantastic. And if you juxtapose, the policy that's been put out for Kenya, especially which reflects the interest of the children and sexual abuse, especially for the girl child. Not to say that the boy child is also not being abused, whatever. But if you look at this sexual offense, it's a lot of progress compared to what we're experiencing in Nigeria. And so, yes, the fight against these pedophiles, in other cases, a family member is involved, and then we kind of afford the scandal. But then, a child's life and right is being threatened. Children that we're supposed to protect, they can't take decisions on their own. We ought to protect them until they get to the age where they can take decisions. Even at that point, when you forcefully, you have intercourse with a person that's above, even if they get to 18 and then you say, okay, they are an adult, then does that make it right? Because whatever has to happen has to be, an agreement, sort of. So yes, we commend the Delta State government. This is happening because the laws have been activated, the laws in place, to punish this offender, someone who's committed this crime. Imagine that there was no law. Imagine that the laws were not there. What probably would have happened? No, justice would have been meted. And on the other hand, it's also commended that the police was also involved, because you can also talk about this without the police involvement. And so yes, it's a plus for the Delta State government, but we're saying that we want to see this replicated across the 36 states, including the FCT. We have a duty to protect these children because they're children. And even if, they get to a point where they're not children, rape is not acceptable, in our laws. We'll move away from that. Another also very unfortunate and sad incident is that the NSCDC has arrested 3 individuals over 2 million fake currency. Now, I'd like to let you know that before this time, because we had the election is one of the biggest things that happened, in 2023, especially in the first quarter. There were several reports as to the government and, political parties, not to say dominant, but there were political parties. These were, the conversations that were on in different social media spaces. Political parties involved in printing fake Naira notes, especially when we had the issue of the cash crunch and, the Naira redesign. The Zamfara Command of the Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Corps has arrested 3 persons in connection with fake currency worth 2 million Naira. They were paraded, while parading this suspect, because you're also going to be proven guilty by a court of competent jurisdiction. So you are still innocent until you're proven guilty, even if you were caught red-handed. And that's how it works. So while parading the suspect, the command's public relations officer said that the suspects were arrested for being involved in printing and minting and circulating fake Naira notes and the United States dollar notes to the public. Uche said that they were arrested in Gusau on April the 3rd, just recently, trying to pay for a transport fare with a fake 1,000 Naira note. But I like us also to think about this, that some time ago, there were reports, we had several reports that a total of 67,265 pieces of counterfeit notes with a nominational value of 5.683 million was recorded in 2020. Now, this was 20.80% in volume and 12.18% value. However, then, 84,934 pieces and 64.71 million in 201 tricycle operators were said to have been identified. We can't continue, because if you look at the fact that people are going ahead let's look at it logically now. So you have a group of persons or individuals who are printing fake notes. You also have the fact that these notes are in circulation. You have the Apex Bank, you have the relevant government authorities or authorities saying we have had several figures outside. We also remember 3 months ago when we were faced with, the redesign policy, the fact that the Naira was not available. So say shortly after that, notes, counterfeits were available. So I think that we need to do better. What we need to do is better. It's not rocket science. It's the fact we need to pay attention to it. The fact that people can sit down, individual or group of persons sit down to print the note, is that we have a weak security feature. It's easy for you to mint the note. So let's even take a look at what has happened in the United Kingdom. Because just recently, the United Kingdom replaced all paper notes with polymer, which is plastic note. And they say that lasts long. It's hard to produce. It's hard to produce a fake one and cuts huge costs for printing money regularly. So it's just important that if it's easy for anyone, my son orientation across different paths. So there's a Ministry of Orientation Information in the 36 states of the Federation. I want to be corrected if I'm wrong. And so if you look at the nomenclature, information orientation, what's going on? Do we even have this, level of orientation? What exactly is going on? Because I know that this budgetary allocation to this agency, people are earning salaries, but are they doing their job? We need to, how do you identify? Because it has to be easy for you to identify a fake. Imagine that you have 200 million Naira or 2 million Naira fake currency. Do you know how much would have gone into the entire system Do you know how much has been going? We're still waiting for, all of this report, however. But just imagine how much is going on. So imagine that the Ministry of Information and Orientation is doing her job. People know what to look out for. It's easy for you to identify a fake, note from an original. Then a lot will be done. So it's just a two-way thing that will definitely just have a way of preventing all of these occurrences. So again, I think that it's time for us to, get back to the drawing board as a government, as a people, the CBN, that's the Apex Bank, the agencies of government to do their own bidding as Nigerians as well. This also would douse down all of these activities. But then you won't think about all of the allegations that were put out prior to this time that we're in April, and all of the complaints as to political parties, persons who are in these parties who are printing fake notes, whether in naira or dollars, just to vote by. That should have been investigated, and those who are involved should have been brought to book, because that's exactly what government exists for. And we can only hope that we get it better and better every other time. I will just quickly delve to the next one, is the fact that so there's a report that thugs invaded Labour Party headquarters in the AFCT. And according to this report, Lamide Apapa, Deputy National Chairman of the Labour Party in the South, says he's taking charge of the affairs of the party due to this particular occurrence. The declaration came after Julius Abiru, National Chairman of the party, alleged that thugs aided by the police officers invaded the party's headquarters in the Federal Capital Territory and caused damage to the property. And however, blame Abiru that the thug or the alleged thug invasion is of the All Progressive Congress. It's unfortunate that the kind of politics that we practice in our polity. I think we do have, a tape to roll on this particular one. Let's quickly look at that. When we return, we'll talk some more. Please stay with us.
Now, the Labour Party office is under attack. All the doors at the national headquarters have been broken, and they have entered the office, purportedly trying to hold a meeting in the office. That meeting is not authorized by me. It's not authorized by the National Working Committee. The Labour Party is under serious attack, personally and individually, because of the case we have against the APC in courts. All of this blackmail, all of this attack is tailored towards destroying the mandate that has been freely given to us by Nigerians. Nigerians must rise to the occasion, defend their country, defend democracy, and defend the Labour Party. Thank you. Now.
Well, it's still very unfortunate that even after the elections, all of this attack will continue, but it's over to the security agencies, a very relevant one, that it's the sole responsibility of the men of the Nigerian police force, to ensure that lives and properties are protected and maintaining peace and order in a democratic dispensation. Then we expect that the police would, swing into action, that, the government of the day will ensure that people are protected, their lives are protected. We would do the needful, and this would never happen. You can also take out the fact that interest. So every other time you have a political party, you see that our political parties, people seem to swing from one point to the other. People would decamp when their interests are not represented at the end of the day. Because at the end of the day, people, there's no ideology. Some of our political parties lack, if not all, ideologies, and it's easy for all of the swindling and all of the undemocratic behavior in our polity. And what do you expect? If at the party level people are behaving undemocratically, then do you expect, a better thing? Do you expect a better projection? Do you expect that when a free, fair, ground is not affordable to the people, at the party level, what do you expect, at the center? It's just a trickle down of what's going on, in the party. And then that would also happen, at the national level. But that's the size of it. We'll take a quick breather. When we return, we'll look at the pages of the national dailies at this point. Judy Johnson will be joining us. Please stay with us. Good morning.
For upcoming artists to blow in Nigeria. Welcome to Plus Trending. I am Vicky November, your host, saying thank you for joining us on today's episode.
Welcome back. It's tea time on Plus TV Africa.
Practice makes perfect. I'm not perfect yet, but I'm a lot better than I used to be.
He's a king. He's entitled to marry 100 if he wants to.
Well, we're back with Off the Press. Jide Johnson joins us this morning on the show via Zoom. Jide, it's good to have you join us. Happy Good Friday.
Good morning and happy Good Friday to all our viewers all over the world, and Ramadan Kareem to our Muslim brothers that are still fasting. It's a pleasure, and sisters that are still fasting. It's a pleasure to be with you on a Good Friday.
Yes, then we hope that it's a good Friday indeed. We start off with Nature News. It talks about the environment according to the nomenclature. Stakeholders demand implementation of 2021 Climate Change Act. That's boldly written on the Nature News this morning. And that would mean that, hey, we need to move away from emission of, the green gas. Africa's growth remains low, needs transition to low carbon economies. That's what the World Bank is saying. But what is the implication on our development? Then again, you find farmers embrace agroecology, seek support from the federal government. Federal government gives maritime operators $700 million for vessel acquisition. It dominated the papers yesterday. Ondo government to sell off Sunshine Stars and Sunshine Queens. Wow, what exactly is going on? We just move away from the Nature News now, quickly turn our attention to the Guardian newspaper. National Stadium of Shame filled 31 months after $1 million facelifts. It's more like an editorial. You have this picture here of a national stadium as it has been described. Former President Olusegun Obasanjo says 2023 polls shameful, urges next governor to end ethnic division. Labour Move says federal government wants to cash in on 800 million palliatives, where government is saying we're sending 800 million naira with board, and we're going to use that to cushion the effect of the removal of subsidy in June. Questions over 12 billion airport fire trucks. I'll take that again. Questions over 12 billion airport fire trucks, and NNPCL hits at 400.8 billion gas pipeline amid push by Europe. Then just before move away, confusion as Labour Party headquarters witness a siege and WC replaces Abura as chairman. So there's a siege and then you can't even see what's going on right there. The next paper we'll be looking at is The Nation, why Tinubu was elected by US-based observer mission. Why Tinubu was elected. US-based observer mission is quoted to say, then you move away from that. Macron seeks China's action to end Russia's Ukraine war. Leadership crisis tears Labour Party apart. Okay. Former president Olusegun Obasanjo urges incoming government to begin healing and reconciliation. Pressure on me to go into self-exile, Obi alleges. Oh, wow. Then you find no easy electoral victory again, Buhari tells politician. Mischief makers plotting interim government, says the defense headquarters. That Obasanjo. He says he's too old to keep quiet over rot in the country. Alleges Nigeria's leaders spend money like drunken sailor. Oh, that's a lot. I'm sure the sailors don't feel attacked. Headsmen kill 49 in fresh Benue community attack. That's a saddening one. Thugs attack Labour Party National Secretariat in the FCT. We only recognize Abura as party chairman. So, the siege, we don't know if that's connected to the internal wranglings that's going on in the party. Military will defend constitution against interim government. That's what the defense headquarters is saying. We will not allow that happen. It says reversal of cash policy responsible for increase in kidnapping. So if this was going to, let's think about it. If the policy was going to help, stop kidnapping and whatever, or reduce it to a barest minimum, because we had witnessed, some sort of quiet up until then. It feels like, the notes again, especially the old notes are in circulation, quite worrisome. Buhari mocks governors who fail to make Senate after elections. I'm not sure the president will be that petty. Then again, you find Ekiti Gubo Oyebanji hails Supreme Court's judgment reaffirming his election. Nigeria to build infrastructure for gas delivery to Europe. These are the headlines you find this morning on the papers. I'd quickly like to start off with The Nature newspaper, I mean, that's what we started off with this morning. Jide Johnson, how do you respond to this, where stakeholders are asking the implementation of 2021 Climate Change Act? And if we look at that, demand, if you look at what they're asking for, it might also have a huge implication on, our environment in terms of our productivity and development as a country.
Well, the whole essence of the climate change is about the protection of the environment, to protect nature, to ensure that we maintain stability in the ecosystem, and so that we can have survival of every living thing that is within the environment. So that's why the advocates of the climate change have advocated that through our choices and through our decisions, we have further destroyed the ecosystem, and there's a need for us to preserve it. And nations over the world, the most strategic decision was the Paris Accord, in which many nations were part and parcel of it, with the exception of United States that withdrew from the Paris Accord under Donald Trump regime. So, in essence, if you are part and parcel of an international treaty and then you come home, you domesticate it, you should implement the laws that you have passed. The problem with us in Nigeria is that we have a lot of laws that we have passed. We are progressive in our thinking, but it's the implementation of those laws that is usually the problem for us. Everything we talk about is not about the laws, it's about the implementation, the will to do what is required based on the extant laws that we have. So as far as I'm concerned, we signed the bill into an act in 2021, and here we are in 2023. They have not done anything to that effect. And there are so many acts of the parliament that are like that we have not implemented, and it's just us not following through with whatever laws we have passed. That's the reason why we have had problems, either politically, economically, or socially. And there's a particular story which you talk about with respect to banditry and kidnapping, people demanding money, because we had a policy of cashless policy, new Naira notes, redesign, the rest of it to deal with a particular issue. However, the implementation of that policy itself created problems. So we are nations of law, but we are also it's a major contradiction. We are nations of law, we are also in nations that does not observe its law. So that's just the challenge which we have with respect to this.
But I also like to ask you what you make of that. Yes, it's okay that we committed ourselves to, this act or whatever treaty it is that we signed. But when you juxtapose that with our behavior and how we survive as a country, do you think that, it was really valid and rational that we commit ourselves to some sort of agreement when we know that we're still great on, not 100%, but we're still very dependent on fossil fuel, we're dependent on a lot of this, destruction of the environment for our own survival. And so if we take that out, it's not like we have a lot in place to cater for our needs.
To every story, there are two sides to the story. There are advocates and there are pessimists, and then there are those that are in the middle. They are neither here nor there. On the issue of climate change, I'm neither here nor there with respect to what the advocates have been advocating. Considering what you have just said, every nation develops at its own pace. What level of development do we have? In fact, when you are busy talking about climate change, you are not talking about poverty, taking care of poverty. If you look at the amount of money that has been invested globally on campaign on climate change, and we are much more concerned about the climate, we are much more concerned about the environment, but we are less concerned about poverty. How many people are living below the poverty line globally? So I think that what United Nations and the rest of all the advocates of this climate change should first focus on will be on how to reduce, because it's not possible to eradicate poverty, is to reduce poverty to the barest minimum. So where are you going to, if people don't make use of fossil fuel, if they don't make use of natural gases, they will, and in fact, majority of people don't even use don't use natural gases or fossil fuel in Nigeria. They use charcoal and dead logs of trees to cook their meal. So If someone does not have access to all of your renewable energy, what is he going to use to survive? So, as far as I'm concerned, some of these campaigns are just meant for getting global attention and then looking for ways to direct funding to, so that some people, some international civil servants can have access to some certain funds which they can use to pursue the campaign on their beliefs and their value system for some time. I think I was reading one story, I think yesterday or day before yesterday, when someone was saying that when someone pointed out that they thought that what's this coldest region? I remember whether Greenwich or something like that. They thought that the carbon dioxide emission will have made the Greenwich area to be hotter, but it's become colder. So you have seen contrary, divergent data and statistics from the advocates and those that are anti-climate change campaign. So as far as I'm concerned, the major concern for us in Africa is poverty, eradicating poverty, building better infrastructure, providing opportunity for our teeming youths that are unemployed, rather than be talking about climate change. The climate change is the climate of opportunities that are available to them.
No, but Jide Johnson, you can also allude to the fact that, we're complying. There's a lot of compliance. For instance, if you live in Cross River State or you go to Cross River State, there's a lot of preservation of the green environment, trees and whatever. There are too many policies, protecting the environment. Now, at the detriment of having, what you call them now. You have companies, you have industries, because you constantly have to protect the environment, protect the climate. And when we're not even contributing up to 10%, less than 3% of carbon emissions. So every other time I ask, should Africa or Nigeria be concerned about this? Yes, we understand that it's a global concern, but should we, be taking our necks in this conversation?
The major developed economy and the emerging global power, China, India, and Brazil, what's the level of their compliance with this? Sometimes I just think that international civil servants just gathered, they look for one fancy idea and they play on that idea to distract our attention from real issues. What are the real issues? The real issues are the poverty level we have globally, the disparity between the North and the South. When I talk about the North and the South, in the global landscape, you are talking about the division between the developed country and the developing countries. So the disparity, the lack of opportunities for children of the South and more opportunities for children of the North. And then you also see that we have also seen a very, very serious immigration policy preventing movement of people, either through legal or illegal means across the globe. So if you are much more interested in climate change, I have no problem with that. You should also be much more interested in changing the human experience. That's my take. That's my concern. For example, if you localize it, you spend, if you look at the amount of money they spend on planting a tree, watering a tree, and then you look at the amount of money that government spends in providing healthcare, you begin to wonder. For me, I think sometimes some of these ideas are just opportunities for people to spend either global funds or local funds and the rest of it. I might be wrong. Look at the energy with which we are Fashola planted trees. How many government that came? I'm just using Lagos as an example because you give me Fashola made huge investment in planting trees. And then after Fashola's administration, which administration has made investment in pursuing the green revolution in Lagos State, for instance, some of these trees that were planted, you just see, every time you go, you see people bringing out cutlass and cutting them off, macheting them off, cutting off these trees, some of the trees that are planted. So you see, there is no consistency with respect to this climate change movement, one. Then two, my own major concern is that if you spend money on climate change, you should also spend money on changing the human experience. That's my take. There's a lot of fund that goes on climate change. If you see the funding that goes on it, if you see the amount of money, if you see when they gather to come. We've had so many conferences have been, and people that are advocate like Al Gore, Bill Gates and the rest of them. They fly private jet. They fly private jet to their conferences, and even the CO2 emission from their private jets are much more than what. So there's a lot of hypocrisy when it comes to this campaign. That's just my take. There's a lot of hypocrisy when it comes to this.
Let's then turn our attention to the Guardian newspaper. The National Stadium of Shame, filth 31 months after $1 million facelift. This is the National Stadium in Surulere, right there in Lagos. I mean, is this the stadium that was commissioned by General Yakubu Gowon in 1972? Of course, in 1973, we had the games, African Games, where we actually, won and what have you. And then it's the same stadium that we're describing as, that of shame and filth. How do you feel about this? Jide Johnson, can you hear me? Oh, well, unfortunately, we haven't disconnected. I'm hoping that we have Jide Johnson connect with us in no time. I can't wait to share his thoughts on this particular headline on the Guardian newspaper that talks about the National Stadium in Surulere. Then in Lagos, I mean, if you look at the glory and everything that has happened, what could have been responsible for such description? What could have really happened? What we had then and what we're having now, and if you look at it, is it something to write home about? Jide Johnson, do we still have you on the line? We'll just take a pause now. When we return, we hope to connect with Jide Johnson. Please stay with us.
What we do not understand, we will stigmatize.
What you can see is the remaining of the tanker that exploded.
The suspect equally confessed.
A 500 naira they collect them. If you no talk, then go beat you. Now 2,500 they pay.
and welcome to Space and Style, a property show designed to connect various stakeholders across the property value chain. We can also provide realistic solutions and deepen your knowledge about the interesting world of real estate. We shall showcase architectural design, interior design trends, lifestyle and real-time property news updates, and the right way to navigate through property development and investment. Join me every week on this channel as I take you through an exciting journey in the world of real estate.
Space and Style, 6:30 p.m. on Saturdays and 5:30 p.m. on Wednesdays.
Jide Johnson, thank you once again for reconnecting. Unfortunately, we got disconnected due to network issues, right? We hope that we get it better every other time. But just before that timeout, I was asking what your thoughts are. The same stadium, the National Stadium in Surulere, that's in Lagos, that was commissioned by the General then, Yakubu Gowon, his regime in 1972, the same stadium that we had fantastic games, African games, and then of course we were topping the chart. This same stadium that was described like the Mecca, in Africa and what have you, is the same stadium that we are saying is filthy, is a shameful one, especially after those, $1 million allocated for its facelift. What are your thoughts? How does this even make you feel?
Mercy, I grew up, I'm a Surulere boy. I was born in Surulere, and then I watched so many games live in that stadium. I was in that stadium when Okparachi died. I witnessed it live, and I had memories, fond memories of that stadium. And I know the power and the impact that sport can make and the difference it can make in the life of the youth. Just imagine if there's no basketball, if there's no American football, if there's no music, what will happen to millions of African Americans? And successive governments since 1999 have not made any investment in sport. Imagine if there's no Premier League in look at the opportunities Premier League is providing to children of immigrants from Africa in England and across the globe, and government does not even know the power of sport, and they just pay lip service to it. It's unfortunate. I was at that stadium, I think sometime December 26th to be precise, and I was weeping because I knew how we used to, the fond memories of that stadium. And then you begin to wonder, people just open their eyes and then they watch national asset getting rot like that. It's just like the Federal Secretariat in Ikoyi. The building is still there. Nothing is happening to it. For years it will be there. And just like I don't know why we need to build another national stadium in Abuja when we have one in Lagos. And where you see, countries usually exploit the strength of their nation. Where are the opportunities? So if you could have the NDA in Kaduna, you could have other agencies of government stationed in Kaduna. Why should NFF go to Abuja? Why should the sporting ministry go to Abuja? The sporting ministry could be in Lagos, Port Harcourt, or Ibadan. And that's why you've seen that we have failed when it comes to sports. And sports, and I mean sport, is a major employer of youths. Is a major employer of youths. And because you have neglected that area, just like you have neglected the facility, in the process you have destroyed the opportunity for millions of Nigerians in breaking through the poverty line. A lot of younger Nigerians have taken their family, the extended family, out of the poverty line through sports. But what do we know? You know, some people build Lagos, some people build Nigeria, some people build Akwa Ibom, like they claim. You can't build this society if you don't provide opportunities for the younger generation. And sport is one of the major employers of labor. Thank God for music and entertainment. Just imagine, take music and entertainment away from Nigeria. Look at what music and entertainment has done. And that's why government should invest in this thing, because a lot of teenagers that are roaming the street, they can go and burn their energy. Those that are fighting on the street will channel that energy into boxing or wrestling, into physical combat sport. These are things which are done. Imagine without boxing, where do you think Mike Tyson will have ended? Without boxing, where do you think Floyd Mayweather will have ended? Probably they will have been in prison. Even with that, with them engaging in sport, they found themselves in prison one way or the other. But at least he was able to curtail them, make them to escape poverty. But what do we know? We don't know anything. We don't know anything at all. It's a shame. And then you build the National Stadium in Abuja. Have you ever been to the National Stadium in Abuja? That's another colossal waste. Where the stadium is built, it's not easily accessible. It's not in residential area, and it's at the gate of Abuja town. So when you and there's no public transport system that will take you from Abuja, from the main city to the stadium. So if you go and watch games there, you become stranded. So why would you go and watch a game and become stranded and you get back to take you back home? So I think we take 10 steps forward and then we take 100 steps backward. But when people want to be economic with the truth, when they want to help themselves, they come up with one idea or the other, and then they implement those policies that you know is not going to work in the long run. And you can associate the failure of our national team with the movement of our team to Abuja, with the movement of the national stadium and neglect of sport in the last. What has happened to our teams, previous teams, underage group teams, and the rest of it? They are almost dead. We're now relying on importing foreigners to come and play for us. It's unfortunate, Messi.
I'd like to ask you on, the Daily Trust. That's, there's a headline that talks about former President Olusegun, who says Nigeria is more divided than it is now, and it needs some reconciliation, national reconciliation. I mean, why is that the case? Why are we more, the Daily Independent newspaper, I beg your pardon, this has become a very popular statement it feels like it's going to become part of our lexicon, because every other time we've heard, especially after the elections, we have never been divided than we are, prior to this time, Nigeria is more divided than we were before. Why is that, the case?
Well, there's one thing you can't take away from the military. It's about the unity of the country. They have a way of announcing the unity of the country. And there's one thing you can't take away from the political class, is the ability to appeal to our fault lines, in order to seek and win control of government. If you check the voting pattern from 1999 to date, the South has always voted one way, the North has always voted the other way. And if you want to see classic division, the classic division started in 2003, and then in 2007, there was no election, as a lot of people have agreed on to that effect. And then 2011, you discover that from 2011, the first election between Buhari and Jonathan, Nigeria was divided into two. Just look at the map. All you just need to do is color coding for those that voted for Buhari and those that voted for Jonathan. You begin to see that pattern of division. And then by 2015, you also see that pattern of division of the voting pattern, where Buhari won and where Atiku won. If you use color coding for the state in Nigeria, you see this emerging pattern. So it's not a surprise when people are talking about this, because politicians, they appeal to our sentiments because they don't have any policies. Their campaigns are not issue-based. If it's not my turn, it's some people want to come and take over our state. If it's not, they don't want to come and take over our states. You break it down. If you break it down, you go to, for example, you go to a state like Benue State, where you have 3 major ethnic groups and some other sub-ethnic groups. It's only one ethnic group. It is the TV that are still being governor of that state. They keep recycling themselves. There's no involvement of other tribes like the Domas and the Gedes Now, in Kaduna, for example, El Rufai tried Muslim ticket for the first time in Kaduna, where usually the deputy governor usually comes from the southern Kaduna, and it comes from the majority of the southern Kaduna, but El Rufai picked the northern minority, a minority, a southern minority of the same faith with him. And so when people talk about that division, who should we blame? It's about I stumbled on one of Abacha's speeches when he was starting his transition program. Everything he said about the political class, everything. You would think that Abacha is a saint. Everything he said, with them appealing to ethnicity, with them appealing to religious divide, and everything Abacha said, you would think that Abacha is a saint. You'll be shocked. I was taken aback that indeed it's unfortunate that Abacha can't wake up from the dead to come and share his own side of the story. Because everything he accused the political class of doing then is what they are doing now. And one of the major reasons why Babangida banned the presidential candidate in 1991, all of the reasons he adduced in his national broadcast. So they are nothing new. They are nothing new because Nigerian politicians, they don't have any programs, they don't have any issue, they don't have any ideology. Tell me the ideology of the political parties. Any of the political parties. There's no ideology. Tell me any of the gladiators in the political space that has not moved from one party to another party. Tell me, there's none. So the essence of seeking public offices is not based on ideology. It is based on fulfilling personal ambition. It is based on fulfilling lifelong ambition. It is based on adding to their CV as far as some of them are concerned. But it's based on it's the turn of our region to produce what? To produce what for what? For who? If you really care about people, you make investment in the life of the people. But it is what it is. Let me use the common language.
And some people say that's very, common with the Gen Z people. Well,
that's why I said let me use their time. It is what it is.
Jide Johnson, thank you so much. I mean, it's always a great time to have you on the show, share your thoughts on national issues. We wish you a good Friday and have yourself a happy holiday.
Thank God it's Friday, Mercy. But this is a somber Friday. And we eat something bitter. And then in memory of the death of our Lord Jesus Christ. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be with you once again. Keep up the smile, even in the face of the major issues we have in the country. We keep smiling.
Yes.
We hope for the best.
Thank you so much. Well, that's the size of it on Off the Press for the week. It's the final for the week. We'll return on Monday with more interesting headlines. Of course, we always have in-depth analysis to all of these issues. We take a break. Now, when we return, today is the International World Health Day. We'll talk some more, especially, with the concerns, health challenges in our sector here in Nigeria. Please stay with us.
advocate for upcoming artists to blow in Nigeria.
Welcome to Plus Trending. I am Vicky November, your host, saying thank you for joining us on today's episode.
Welcome back. It's Tea Time on Plus TV Africa.
Practice makes perfect. I'm not perfect yet, but I'm a lot better than I used to be.
He's a king. He's entitled to marry 100 if he wants to.
So what are the top decisions that the United States considers necessary that Nigeria must take? I like to think of my interactions as conversations, not interviews. And that's why I say asking questions is both an art and a science. Plus TV Africa and gain exclusive access to my conversations. I'm Angela Ajitumobi.
We're back with the Breakfast on Plus TV Africa. It's the first conversation here. It's World Health Day, and today is, like I mentioned earlier on, the World Health Organization will be celebrating 75th anniversary because in 1948, countries of the world came together, founded the WHO. The essence was to promote health, keep the world safe, and save the vulnerable. But has that been the case? So for everyone everywhere, they can attain the highest level of health and well-being. Now, today is a great time to look at our public health as a country. That's Nigeria, and as a continent, as a globe as well. The successes that have been improved upon in terms of the quality of life during the last 7 decades and the shortfalls as well. At this particular point, it was also stated that the theme for this year's event, that's the World Health Day 2023, is Health for All, which highlights the significance of universal health coverage for individuals worldwide, particularly in developing nations like Nigeria. We have a guest joining us this morning. He's the Nigerian Country Director at the One Campaign in the FCT, Stanley Anotru. I hope I got that well. Achonu. Stanley Achonu, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Then we also have Dr. Samuel Okerinde, who is a public health physician in Lagos University Teaching Hospital. Dr. Okerinde, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So let's delve straight into it. I'll start off with Achono. What is the significance of today, especially when we look at our public health, the health sector for us as a country? What are the successes and, what are the failures that we can actually reflect on?
Thank you again for having me, and compliments of the holiday season to everyone, to your viewers as well. Today, as we commemorate the International World Health Day, is a significant day considering the myriad of challenges that we face as a country in our health sector. We have some of the worst health indices in the world, but we have also overcome some of the most challenging health issues that the world has been confronted with. You look back to Ebola. When Ebola hit, Nigeria was one of the countries that successfully managed that outbreak. We also did tremendous work in managing the most recent COVID outbreak, where while the world projected that the number of deaths on the continent, especially in countries like Nigeria, would be tremendous, Nigeria was able to overcome that challenge and avoid the worst outcome in health. We have some of the best health experts and health workers in the world, despite the challenges that we face. And when you go around the world and you meet Nigerian doctors, they are some of the best doctors in the world. Only the challenge is that we are not able to harness these human resources that we have on our hands to make sure that we deliver the best of healthcare to our citizens. But so today, we look back to the progress that we have made. We have started a health insurance scheme for the poor. We are delivering improved primary health care to tackle health challenges faced by the poorest of the poor. But we still face tremendous challenge, and that for the size of the country, there is a lot to be done. Our secondary and tertiary healthcare needs a lot of attention. Funding remains an issue, but in all of this, there has been some progress that has been made, but there is a lot more to be done for us to get the quality of health that delivers the best to our citizens.
Let's speak with Samuel this morning, Kirinde, doctor who's a physician. He's practicing in Nigeria. I'd like to share your pulse. How do you feel today, the day that's celebrated as World Health Day? What's the feeling for you? Are you excited? Are you sad? What's the emotion?
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. I want to say I'm delighted to be here. Today, of course, is World Health Day, a day set aside by the World Health Organization to highlight the important issues or the challenges, and sometimes also the successes that we've had in public health space. I want to, your earlier speaker, Stanley, said a lot about how I feel about Nigeria. Even though we've recorded some successes, we must always say that, because it's not just that you keep, talking about the negatives and you don't talk about the positive. Ebola, of course, for example, was one of the successes that Nigeria was able to record. Then COVID-2, of course, as opposed to what was, postulated or, thought that would happen to Nigerians in Africa. Nigeria was able to, put himself together. And that's to let it know that there is indeed potentials if we're able to announce all the resources, or if we're able to put our act together. Africa, Nigeria has a lot to do. And so if you ask me, I would say it's more of a mixed feeling, not necessarily while happy for the successes that we have. I would say that when I look at the gaps and the deficits that we have, it's really something to ponder and think about.
But I'd like you to speak to it because you're a practitioner, right here. What are the challenges so far? So good, 75 years WHO will be celebrating, they have existed. But I'd like to ask you specifically, what are the challenges in the health sector in Nigeria that you have experienced firsthand?
Okay, so if you want to talk about the challenges, we want to put them close to the indicator or the indices. And like Stanley said, Nigeria really, we're not doing well when it comes to those things. Let's start with the framework for having a functioning healthcare system. Okay, WHO gives about 6 building blocks. Okay, in the framework, and the first one, of course, is service delivery, where you have to talk about one of the indicators is number of hospital, per population. Nigeria has over 200 million people, and from the Ministry of Health website, we have less than 40,000 health facilities. Now, this is include primary healthcare centers, tertiary hospitals, and of course, the private setting, 40,000. If you look at it to the population, you find out that is grossly inefficient. Of course, the next building block talks about healthcare workforce. Healthcare workforce has to do with your doctors, your nurses, to the population that we have. Nigeria currently has less than 40,000 doctors. Of course, if you look at the register, you see that a lot of people with this Jacques syndrome and Brindley syndrome, you see that we are actually also not doing well, as opposed to WHO saying 1 physician to 600 people. In Nigeria, you see 1 doctor seeing more than 4,000 patients, which of course has led to more people leaving the system because there has been cases of burnout and all of those things. So in healthcare workforce, retaining our healthcare workforce is another big issue. And like Stanley said, Nigerian healthcare doctors, nurses are well sorted out all over the world. Why? Because they are quite brilliant and they are very industrial. So when it comes to retaining our health workforce or motivating, one of the indicators for assessing your workforce is how motivated are they? Okay, do they have the resources? Do they have the equipment to work with? Do they have the right, quote and unquote, positive work environment? Are these things are they happy to come to work to work? A doctor who have to see hundreds of patients every day and still has to earn the same salary that has not changed over time. That kind of person really can give its best. But when they leave the environment and they go to an environment where those things are there, you see that they outshine every other person. So when it comes to health workforce, there's still a lot of gap. Okay, and the other one has to be another building block is financing, healthcare financing. Of course, whenever I talk about this, I'm saddened, because as opposed to other things they budget for example, Nigeria this year budgeted over 6 trillion for subsidy, oil subsidy, which even despite the subsidy, we are not able to access the commodity. There's still queues. But look at health. The amount that has been budgeted for health has never gotten to 7%, as opposed to the Abuja Declaration that says where all head of state came to Africa, Nigeria to be signed Abuja in 2001 and said minimum we should budget for health is 15%. Nigeria has never ever gotten to that level. And of course, if you don't pump money into health, the outcome will not be right. So if you look at all of these things, training, I think that there's still a lot that begs to be done. Still a lot of gaps.
Yeah. So Stanley's here now. Stanley, do you agree with him that framing policy formulation, framing and what have you, other issues, personnel, lack of funding, also be the challenges that the health sector in Nigeria is faced with?
Totally. Dr. Kennedy is spot on in his analysis. Of course, he is in the field. He sees these issues. And his analysis is quite right about the state of Nigerian healthcare. And I'll give, let me re-emphasize one point he made about allocation to health. It's not just that the allocation to health is poor. It's also that the distribution of this allocation also makes our quality of healthcare service delivery challenging. A bulk of the public health allocation goes to tertiary and secondary health institutions, ignoring the building block of health system, which is the primary health care. What that has translated to is that health issues that can easily be managed at primary health care centers are now taken to the secondary and tertiary institutions, thereby overwhelming health workers in these health institutions who should be attending to advanced health issues. I'm sure Dr. Kennedy understands what I'm saying. If you have malaria, there is no reason why you should go to the general hospital. Your first point of call should be the primary health care center in your area, right? And same for other, regular minor health challenges that people face. We should have a system where advancement to secondary and tertiary health institutions should be by referral, right? But what we have at the moment is that if I have a headache, my first destination is the general hospital or the teaching hospital. These shouldn't be things that health centers at that level should deal with. And the reason why everybody heads in that direction is because of the way, even in the small health allocation that we have right now, the way it is now distributed has led to level of inefficiency, thereby overwhelming the entire system, right? So we need to, in advocating for additional health resources, which I agree with Dr. Karen there as well, we also need to be more efficient in distributing this allocation in the health system in such a way that it leads to better health outcomes. We are also a country that our health system is quite expensive. I know this sounds, it sounds like, oh, we're not paying anything. You know, when you ask people, they say, oh, our health system is subsidized. No, we actually have an expensive health system both at the federal and state level. The out-of-pocket expense for an average Nigerian is quite high, right? When you compare it to the affairs elsewhere, our out-of-pocket expense for healthcare is quite expensive. It then redirects resources away from other things that people can tackle, right? And then there's also, and I know Dr. Okede mentioned this, our workforce management is very poor. And when I say workforce management, it starts with payroll. You know, the wages are extremely poor. They are delayed. We are constantly forcing our doctors to go on strike to be paid properly. No, if health system is priority for us, our doctors, our health workers should not be subjected to the kind of treatment that we see them go through every year when there is need for cost of living adjustment. They are forced to go on strike to get that basic cost of living adjustment. We tend to treat them as a set of people that should just accept what they are giving and make the best out of what they are giving. You know, for the kind of work they do, they need to be motivated. Our current wage system for our health workers cannot keep them motivated. Sometimes I worry about their mental health. It has to be a lot to watch people suffer and die every day for things that you can handle, but you do not have the resources and equipment to tackle those things. So we need to be more sympathetic to our health workers because they face a lot of challenge. It's not that people tend to say, "Oh, health workers are wicked." No, you need to look at the environment in which they operate. You need to understand the kind of equipment and environment in which they are forced to manage the work health industry. Promotion is always a challenge. Arrears payment is always a challenge. Infrastructure in the environment where they work is terrible. So the education system is also becoming very challenging for them, of course. And there's the challenge of corruption in the management of the scarce resources in health. So there's just a lot of challenge that our health workers face every day.
No, so but quickly, I mean, for the want of time, because in no time we'll probably may just call this a wrap now. But I'd like to ask you, Stanley, the WHO has specific functions, the reason they exist, and today 75 years would be celebrated. Do you think that the WHO has lived up to expectation? I mean, when you look at Nigeria and Africa as a continent, by the way, in terms of promoting health, keeping the world safe and the vulnerable as well. These are some of the key objectives of the WHO as an organization. For instance, COVID-19 and its vaccine, especially for Nigeria and Africa.
Again, WHO plays a complementary role to what our own government should do or does with respect to health. They have always provided the policy backing and support that countries need. In fact, if you need the best of information around Nigeria health system, you will rely on WHO more than you rely on Nigerian government. So they provide the necessary technical support. With respect to COVID, it was an eye-opener for not just Nigeria, but for low-income countries. Let me not say Africa, because we tend to think that the most challenges are in Africa. But COVID opened the eyes of the world to the inequality that exists in the world that we live in. When vaccine was made available, when vaccine was discovered manufactured for COVID, the rich countries bought up the entire supply, running into 3, 4, 5 years. while the poorer countries were left hanging without any vaccine supply. There was also the inappropriate pricing where the vaccine manufacturers were selling to the highest bidder, leaving low income. There was that uneven lack of fairness in who could access vaccine. That's how we ended up with the rich countries now turning vaccine distribution into a charity. US have donated this number of millions of vaccine. Spain has done this. UK has done this. We shouldn't have been in that situation if WHO had put in place a fair system of distribution of vaccine. And I know, and I'm not. This is not to blame WHO because they did call out the unfairness. They did put mechanisms in place to make sure that all countries are able to access this. There was a lot of criticism of WHO, especially in the run-up to this, in the days leading to and after the COVID outbreak. But we also should recognize that that there was a lot of effort to weaken the institution, the WHO as an institution, and we must. They are a trusted source of public health advisory globally, and weakening the WHO, as we saw during COVID, questioning the experts' opinion, questioning the policy direction they were giving, did not help in managing COVID. And I think that this is something that needs to, world leaders need to think through about how we treat international institutions such as WHO. Where did they fail in some aspect? Of course, there was a lot of uncertainty with COVID. There was a lot that was unknown with COVID. Did they try their best to make the best of policy recommendation? Yes, they did try. Did it lead to the best outcome? Sometimes it failed, as with every other human institution. But I think that they continue to play an important role. They have saved the world a lot of times. They have also learned lessons. They've set up health emergency centers across the world to monitor potential outbreak. They are doing better in terms of changing the discussion around access to vaccine. Right now, they are working with the African governments to make sure that we no longer have a skewed system where vaccine access is now restricted to a few countries.
We need to take a pause there, and let's get back to Dr. Okerinde. Okerinde, I'd like to bring this to you. If you don't already know, I want to assume that you know already that there's a bill that has scaled through the second reading. It is to prevent Nigerian trained medical or dental practitioners from being granted full license until they have worked for a minimum of 5 years in the country and has passed, like I said, it's passed the second reading. It's just to, ensure that people don't dakpa, within your sector. How do you describe this entire bill that has gone through the second reading? Okerinde.
All right, thank you once again. I must say that, one of the things that, one of the building blocks I was going to talk about is leadership and governance, okay? And very, very important in that building block is political will, policy, and all of those things. And we can see that there is a major problem with our health workforce. And what are these problems? Workers are not well compensated, they are not motivated, and like Sally said, there is no remuneration. Their basic allowances are not paid. You have to go on strike before you can get those things that you are entitled to. All right. And of course, no infrastructure. There are still doctors, there's a lot of burnout. And the response to that, instead of, improving the welfare, giving them, for example, motivating them, there is a reason why those people are leaving, what we call the pull factor. All right. You have the push factors. There is no job security. There is no loan facility. They are not happy. And then to further worsen the system, instead of you attending to those basic things, all we could think about is stiffen them, take away their fundamental rights. There's free movement. There is workforce mobility, and all that the government can think about rather than solving the problem is like cutting a head, because of a headache. Instead of looking for what the problem is and solving the problem, I think it's indeed an unfortunate situation. And I must say at this point that it is not only doctors or health workforce that are leaving. We have even other people in the banks. We're having like an epidemic. People in the banks, engineers, professionals in other fields are leaving. So if all that our Senate could think about, our House of Rep could think about, instead of putting legislation that makes life easy, better, creating more medical schools, improving that their wages. If all you could think about is that legislation, I think it's really an unfortunate situation, and I don't think the outcome will be nice. What that will do is to further demotivate health workforce, and they will say they are not. I mean, you can't force them to come to work. They will resign, and maybe they will go and start selling pepper or sand or something that will be able to take care of their needs. So I think they need to look into that law or that bill that is just past second reading, and it should just be killed. That bill should not move further.
I think that Stanley also needs to share his thoughts on this one, especially when you are the country director at one campaign with policies like this. Before this, I'd like to ask, what are the contribution of your organization, to the healthcare sector in Nigeria, development of it, and also what are your thoughts on this recent bill that has killed the second reading, automatically just to put down, those in the medical sector, put them down or tie them down, as it were, so they can't, jackpot, in the words that we have, coined for ourselves, leave to other parts of the country. And some people think that, hey, there's a rationale behind that you can't be training, we can't, afford to train our doctors with our resources and then have them, to go out and work for other countries.
Someone said that talents go where the resources are available, and that is what has happened to Nigeria health system. The talents are going where they can put their talents to use and be rewarded for that talent. You cannot train a doctor, provide them the worst environment to work in, and then expect that they will remain in that environment when there are places where they can deliver quality and then also be rewarded for it. So, as Dr. Kennedy mentioned, the governance component of our health is sorely lacking. The quality of thoughts that we see from the leadership is also sorely lacking. If this is, of all of the myriad of challenges, there's a reason why people are leaving the health system. And when you make a long list of the challenges in our health system, departures from the health system, from the health sector will rank very low, right? There are, maybe you would have listed 10 things before you get to the point of doctors are departing as a challenge. And you then leave all of the challenges at the top and then tackle the one that is the least of the problem, because once you solve the problems at the top, this one will stop. So it's unfortunate that this is the quality of thinking we are seeing as providing governance and leadership for our health sector. Really, really unfortunate, and I hope that there is a rethink. The question I was speaking to a friend when I read about this news, and the question we asked is, if you say that they cannot be given license to practice until after 5 years, what would they be doing in the 5 years? Are they going to be practicing without license? Look, there's just a lot of questions to be asked about this kind of thinking, and I hope that cooler heads step in and give the House of Rep appropriate recommendation on how to tackle the challenge facing health. Definitely not this approach. In terms of what we have done as an organization in health, we have been here for a while. We joined other NGOs working in health sector. We collaborated with Health Sector Reform Coalition, a coalition of NGOs working in health, to champion for the passage of the Nigeria Health Act, which is the foundation on which the Nigeria health system and legislation and governance is built on. In championing for the passage of that law, we have since the law came into effect, we have championed for components like the Basic Healthcare Provision Fund. We spent 2 years pushing the federal government to make that fund, which was covered in the Nigeria National Health Act as well, making that operational. And it took 2 years of campaigning to get the federal government to commit to funding, to making that fund operational. In the last 1-2 years, since the fund has become operational and is disbursing funds to primary health care centers, we are now focused
Stanley,
on making sure that it delivers the most quality to people. Citizens.
I really don't want us to just go away. It's World Health Day. It's not every other time we have the opportunity to talk about these issues. So Achonu, let's take a breather with you now and speak with Dr. Okerinde. Okerinde, what policies or what statement, what exactly do you think the focus should be on this particular day? I mean, I like the fact that it's World Health Day. It gives us the opportunity to talk about all of the issues and what's the way forward. What are the policy formulation, direction? What are stakeholders expected to do at this point in time, to ensure that we have a better society and better healthcare system?
Okay, so the theme for the World Health Day basically talks about health for all, which is basically calling all actors, all stakeholders to ensure that there is universal health coverage, And what we know is that the best form of healthcare delivery or healthcare system, it has to do with PHC, primary healthcare, which basically is the bedrock, is very critical to achieving universal health coverage. So we are saying that number one, the policy should be that the government should invest massively in primary health care. Okay, that has been said, as way back as the Amma-Ata Declaration and the Asana Declaration in 2018 is there. Number two, let's localize some of these things down. Practical one, there need to be a policy that bans all public holders, all politicians from going out for healthcare services. Instead of putting a policy that enslaves or hold back healthcare professionals, doctors, let's put a barrier to say all public office, from the president, right, to the list of public officers, do not go out to seek care so that they can see the decadence or the rots that we have. If they have to stay back, then they will be willing to invest. There have to be policy about training and retraining. There have to be policy about, like it's also said, the problem about the financing, the remuneration, the compensation. And I must also say that one of the reasons why doctors, health workers are leaving is because they are also not secure. We've had several doctors have been killed while they are providing healthcare services to the populace, to the people. Because there is no facility, or there is no infrastructure to take care of those things, of those people, then the people take it on the doctors, and you see doctors being stabbed, doctors being kidnapped, even other health workers. So we need policies that will ensure that doctor securities is ensured. And so just look at all the issues that we have raised, improve their remuneration, improve their working environment, have more infrastructure. Starting talking about the distribution. If you go to the rural communities, they are practically disparity
we have to go
in
now.
facilities.
And I am very saddened that I have to let you go, really. And that's because we have to join the next guest for our conversation. But Stanley Achonu, thank you so much for being part of the show. He is the Nigerian country director at One Campaign in the FCT right here in Nigeria. Thank you once again. And Dr. Samuel Okerinde, thank you so much for also making our time to speak out, and talk about, the challenges of the health sector in Nigeria. We look forward to, having this conversation, in the next couple of days or thereabout. He's also a public health physician. He practiced in Lagos as a university teaching hospital. Thank you, gentlemen, for being part of the show.
Thank you for having us.
All right, then. We take a break. When we return, Monday Thomas joins us this morning on Friday to talk about sports. We'll be right back.
In raising our kids, parents should stop playing God.
The internet is actually using the people.
But when you are looking for money to help other people, then it becomes easy.
Don't rush into marriage. I always say this. You rush in, you rush out.
Family is the bedrock of every society and the essence of life.
On Today with John and Helen, we dig deep into family values in every sense of the word.
Join us every Saturday at 9:15 a.m. on Plus TV Africa, DSTV channel 408.
With you, we play a part in strengthening the values passed from generation to generation.
we do not understand, we will stigmatize.
What you can see is the remaining of the tanker that exploded.
The suspect equally confessed.
Na 500 naira they collect am. If you no talk, dem go beat you. Na 2,500 they pay.
And there's the breakfast on Plus TV Africa. Just before we join the newsroom at 9 o'clock for the news brief, Monday Thomas joins us this morning to talk sports. And Monday, it's good to have you join us. Good morning.
Fantastic morning. Thank you so much for having me, Mercy. It's been some time and you're looking as pretty as ever. Thank you for having me.
Thank you as well. But quickly, let's delve straight to the conversation. The Super Falcons dropped 5 places to become the 40th in the world and 6th in Africa in the latest FIFA ranking. And we're really behind countries like Russia, who's never competed in a game. I mean, how does that really make you feel when we have superstars like Iwobi, Alex and Iwobi, same thing. And then Wilfred Didi. You want to look at the caliber of players that we have, then we're just going, and then we're just really behind a country as Russia, who hasn't really participated in sports. What exactly is going on with the Super Eagles, and how does that make you feel?
Well, as a patriotic Nigerian, I'm really sad. But as someone who understands football, I expected this, because when we are being coached with a manager who hasn't achieved a lot in football, I mean, every manager needs a chance to achieve whatever they need to. But of course, the Super Eagles is a big job, and when you're taking on a big job, the expectations are very high, the standards are very high, and I must say, Coach Joseph Pizarro doesn't match the standards of the Super Eagles, but he certainly matches the standards of the NFF, because the NFF have brought themselves so low to be taking managers who haven't achieved a lot in world football. I know he's got good pedigrees when it comes to training. He was once upon a time in Real Madrid. He has been the coach of Venezuela. He spent some time in Portugal. But what has he really achieved? Has he been able to assemble stars? The Super Eagles are a squad full of great players, but quite a shame that we don't have a manager who's got that great ability to assemble these players. Victor Osimhen, imagine him banging in goals in Italian Serie A, but when it comes to the Super Eagles, he's not getting those supplies. And the other thing is, the Nigerian players are not as good as we think they are. How many of them get to start games for their club side at this particular time? Wilfred Didi played the first game against Guinea-Bissau, where he was a mess in that midfield. He couldn't make it in the second game. And Nigeria also a team, when you expect them to win, they get to disappoint. I'm pretty sure you're familiar with that already, Mercy. When you expect them to struggle, that's where they surprise you. But that shouldn't be so. We are now 6th on the log, 40th in the world, 6th in Africa, and 40th in the world. No one is going to respect us, and that's quite a shame for us.
So you're saying that the reason for all of this is because of the sort of management and coach that we have?
That's what it is. That's what it is. We don't go further than that. And also the kind of players we have. We don't have that quality of players that we think we do. So basically, that's what it is.
Okay, so let's also look at, the next thing now. Is also the Super Falcons, who will commence World Cup preparation with Mexico. And then, of course, if you also look at, the group stage or category, we're looking up, we're going to be up against the likes of Canada. We're going to be up against the likes of New Zealand and Australia. This team, it's not a joke. They're really not a joke, even if it's the female version of it. If you also look at the male version, it's also not a joke as well. Do you see us, making it?
We've not made it in the past occasions, so I don't see us making it. I mean, because I don't see it doesn't mean it can't happen.
Why do I feel like you're just being very pessimistic this morning?
But I just have to be brutally honest, Mercy. It's quite a shame. The last 8 games, the Super Falcons have been involved in just 1 week. And the same problem we are having with the coach and the Super Eagles is what we're having at the Super Falcons. Coach Wendy Waldrum, quite a shame, but that he shouldn't be coaching the most successful African team as far as women's football is concerned. And heading to a World Cup, we are going to take on the likes of Haiti in Antalya and as well as New Zealand. And when we get to the World Cup, we take on the host nation, I think Australia, and as well as great female footballing nation as Canada. I mean, I used to expect a lot from the Super Falcons, but I will urge people listening to me right now that they should temper their expectations. I mean, it's the World Cup. We've not had a good record at the World Cup. I think the best record we had at the World Cup was a quarterfinal finish in 2003. I was very young, but I can still remember that game. Cici, the Brazilian, I don't know how old she is now. Maybe she's a grandmother. She scored a free kick, and I saw Nigeria lose that game by 4 goals to 3. Shout out to the likes of Mercy Akide. They were the ones holding down the Super Falcons at that time. But at this time, we have the likes of Ashisha Oshola, Rajida Jiba. They're having a great time in Spain, but they certainly don't have a great time when they play for the Super Eagles of Nigeria, and that's the thing.
But let's begin to talk about, the solution. Do you think this is a way forward? Is there any remedy, before all of this, before the Super Falcons actually face the game? Do you think there's also a remedy for the Super Eagles as well before the next ranking?
I mean, football, as they say, you're as good as your preparations. They should get their preparations right and ensure that these players are guaranteed of their incentives, bonuses, some level of motivation, because you don't expect someone to leave their club side from Spain. It's the World Cup. I know other club football will be on break, but these players need to know that they are playing for the national team, they are playing for pride, but at the end of the day, they will have food to eat when they get back home. They will have some fancy stuff to buy with the money they will be promised, and these are the things we get to slacken. So I'll call on the management to do the right things, because if we do the right things, form will just follow function and everything will form properly, and then we'll have a great World Cup. And also the preparations, get a win against Haiti today, later on by 3 p.m. And when you take on New Zealand, you continue in winning ways, because football is a game of momentum. When once you lose one game, you can lose the other. You can keep on losing, but once you win, there are chances that you can continue winning, because you've somehow built your motivation, your confidence into the next game. So the management talked about the NFF to act right and make sure the girls are well motivated. The coach should employ some great actors. Ashisha Oshola, Rajida Jibade, we've got Uchen Nakanu. These are people who are playing regularly for their club. They won't be playing regularly for their club if they were not good players. But what happens when they come to the Super Eagles? That has to be on the tactics employed. So the right tactics, the management should act right, and the players should be motivated, and then we'll have a great World Cup.
I remember those times where, it was quite exciting to be called Messi, because you had the likes of Mercy Akide always playing, and then you probably say, hey, there's also Messi. Well, that's the size of it. Thank you so much. Monday, we have to go. We sincerely apologize. We don't have enough time, to have for the conversation, but we'll always talk about this. We have to take a break. to join the newsroom at 9 o'clock. I wish you a very fantastic Friday, a good one at that. Happy Good Friday and happy holiday.
Thank you, Mercy, for having me. Happy Good Friday as well.
All right, then. Well, I want to say thank you to you for also being part of the show from 7 o'clock up until this moment. It has been a fantastic ride for the week. We will return on Monday, all things being equal. If you missed out on any part of the conversation, we ask that you join us via any of our social media platforms. So just to catch up, we're also on YouTube at Plus TV Africa and Plus TV Africa Lifestyle. Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram is at Plus TV Africa. My name is Mercy Boko. Have a great morning.
It for upcoming artists to blow in Nigeria.
Welcome to Plus Trending. I am Bukky November, your host, saying thank you for joining us on today's episode.
Welcome back. It's tea time on Plus TV Africa.
Practice makes perfect. I'm not perfect yet, but I'm a lot better than I used to be.
He's a king. He's entitled to marry 100 if he wants to.
It is engagement we need to have.
those who suffer miscarriages are never taken into account.
Members of the National Assembly are also influence peddlers.
You are sitting on Nigerians' money.
From the barbing, I pay my rent. On the barbing, I send my children to school.
A consultative engagement.
No any tangible notification before they ban us.
It's one thing for people to be at your back and the heat of the moment, and another thing for them to still be with you when push comes to shove.
Good morning, I am Destiny Mama and this is the News Brief. Christians across the globe are commemorating Good Friday, the day Jesus was crucified on Calvary. It is also a time to reflect on the sacrificial love exemplified by Jesus Christ. Most Christian denominations recognize Good Friday as a holy day where fasting and prayers are observed. Processions dramatizing the crucifixion of Jesus will also be witnessed on streets to drive home the essence of the day. And also, former President Olusegun government must work hard to facilitate national moral rearmament and reconciliation. Obasanjo noted that he was too old to keep quiet with the challenges facing the country and would continue to speak.
Even what we saw during the elections, Nigeria is now even more divided and more corroded than we thought. This place